Good.
Test. Hi, everyone. If you've just gotten here, please take your jackets off, squeeze in. We have a lot of people coming in today. I'll be standing room only soon, but we want to just get close and scooch together if you could. Everyone, just a reminder, if you keep scooching in, we're almost at capacity up here. So as you're coming in, kind of filled up the standing room. For anyone, any overflow, we're going to have to send you downstairs. This is going to be live stream, so there's going to be a viewing downstairs as well. So if you can't find a seat, please make your way downstairs. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. This is quite a turnout to celebrate the life of someone who was so very special to all of us. Before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. There's guest books in the very back corner, back where everyone's standing over here. If you could sign before you leave today, that would be appreciated. There's 3 fire exits, as you can see, marked on the walls, the corners. And then bathrooms are over here as well as downstairs. And afterwards, there'll be a reception. We'll have food over here in the corner where everyone's standing. And there'll be a bar downstairs as well. So if you want to stick around, I think we have the space until 5 p.m. And with that, we'll get started. It's with heavy hearts. We gather here today to celebrate the life of Harry Critchley. A devoted husband, father, son, and brother, a loyal friend and colleague, a gifted criminal defense lawyer, a tireless advocate for human rights and social justice, and an overall wonderful human being. I know I speak for everyone here today when I say we are all better people for having known Harry. He was truly one of a kind. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion in the room today. and all of us. So to kick things off, I'd like to just take a minute for all of us, if we, if we have the space, to and invite you to stand up and say hi to maybe someone next to you and introduce yourself if you don't know them, and let them know how you know Harry, and then we'll proceed. Okay, thank you. We'll all have time to talk more after, but so how do you even comprehend something so tragic? The loss of a life, someone so young, so accomplished, so loving, caring, and incredibly giving to his family, his friends, and his community. The truth is, there's no way to make sense of it all. I know for myself, and I imagine for many of you in this room, you're still likely in shock of all of this. The only truth we do know is that Harry's passing reminds us of life's fragility. It forces us to pause and consider what is truly important. And if there was anyone who understood what mattered most, it was Harry. Yes, he had big goals and ambitions, but more than anything, he always put his family first. He fought tirelessly for justice and equality in his community. He was always unapologetically and authentically himself. And he appreciated the little moments in life, the little things, the people, and the connections. These are just a few of the many lessons I know I'm grateful to have learned from Harry Critchley. Grief is a funny thing. It comes for us in all differently, at different times, often in waves that knock us off our bearings. But in its deepest pain, grief is also a beautiful thing, a testament to the love we carry, to the impact someone had in our lives. And if there's one thing we all know, it's that Harry was deeply loved. That love will not fade. It will stay with us, carried in our memories, in our actions, and in the ways we choose to honor him. I know I will be eternally grateful for my time spent with Harry. From our countless hours spent working out in my mom's basement, one of Harry's favorite weekend activities, to relaxing at the cottage and solving all the world's problems, to debates I would try to win, but never could because Harry was always so much more well-read than I ever will be. I have endless precious memories that will be forever cemented in my mind, and I know, I'm sure you all do too. But even more so, I'm grateful for the gift he gave us with his beautiful daughter, Wren. She will perpetually share his infectious smile, his inquisitive and intelligent nature, and his epically unique and awkward dance moves. Something which she's already shown signs of. So today, as we come together, let us grieve, let us remember, most importantly, let us celebrate a life that was full, fearless, and profoundly meaningful. On behalf of Aaron, Ren, and all of Harry's family, I want to thank you all for being here today. Your presence is a reflection of how deeply Harry was cherished. So with that, we're going to welcome up several of those closest to Harry to come up and say a few words. Afterwards, you'll see in your program, there will be a few minutes for us to open up the floor if you want to share a few short words or memories of Harry, time permitting. So next, I would like to welcome up Harry's family, his father, Barry, his mother, Leah, and his brothers, Jack and Ted.
Thanks, Ian. I was getting my bearings. I guess a 32-year-old man with a wonderful wife and a beautiful one-year-old baby, and who has done so much good work for so many people over so many years, probably believed he had the right to live his dreams. But that didn't happen. Instead, the world lost a great one. Indeed, no words seems to be the standard response to what happened last Friday to Harry. He was very healthy, just starting out his life as a husband, father, and legal aid lawyer. But what lay ahead promised to be quite the journey. When Harry graduated senior kindergarten in 1999, the teacher wrote, "Harry has a wonderful imagination and the ability to express himself so articulately that he's joy to have in the classroom. He's taken a strong leadership role, is popular member of the class, handles responsibility well, and works well independently." I don't know. So I guess the question is, how just prescient was that? Over the subsequent 25 years, Harry has simply grown in this role, and seemingly so effortlessly. Being very bright helps, but passion, a moral compass, a set of principles, and a determination to succeed are key. Harry had all of those and many more. Challenges never bothered him. Think of the hurdles, administratively, involved in his first foray into prison justice, organising classes to be taught to prisoners at Burnside by university professors. There's a few bureaucrats involved in that, and they can have different views. Harry did all of that and came back for more. He never took the easy option. As a competitive swimmer, his best races were the grueling 400, 800, and 1,500 metres. He was an inspiration and all, with the unique ability to connect with people. Indeed, he seemed to know everybody. And just think, if Harry had listened to his parents, none of this may have occurred. We encouraged him to do law at U of T, but we weren't fully aware of the extent of his involvement in Halifax, the city he loved and the city where he could give free rein to his goals. He made the right decision. So instead, he went to Dell Law on a full scholarship and for good measure bought a house. He was staying. And that's when he met Aaron, a love that blossomed when COVID hit in 2020, and the two were locked down in Tatamagouche with Val and Ron. Last October, they were married in Tuscany with a wonderful ceremony attended by the joyous Ren. We, along with many others, will all give our love and all our support to Aaron and Ren. Harry, you're a once-in-a-generation person. So young, so talented, so accomplished, so modest, so involved, so wonderful, so loving, so caring, with an ability to bring joy and enthusiasm to any situation. We all love you, and you are proud of you. Finally, some thanks. Firstly to Emma Halpin, the head of the Elizabeth Fire Society, and Professor Sheila Wildman over there, for helping in organising the funeral and for setting up the scholarship in Harry's names. Donations will be gratefully accepted. Secondly, I'd like to thank those who came from away to be here. In some cases, they came from a long way. Finally, I wish those in this room who let Harry flourish and allow his enormous talents to surface. We're all the better off for knowing him. Thank you. All right, Jack. All right.
Ted Kennedy once said about his brother Bobby, "This is the way he lived. My brother need not be idealized or enlarged in death beyond what he was in life, but be remembered simply as a good man and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, saw suffering and tried to heal it. Those of us who loved him, who celebrate his life today, pray that he was to us and what he wished for others will someday come to pass." I don't think there is a quote that can summarize Harry Critchley better than that. He did so much in such a short time, but was both humble and respectful, and let his actions speak for himself. Harry was an incredibly hard worker, a great student, an amazing swimmer, and overall a good man. But most importantly, he was my older brother and my friend. Harry was the cool older brother I always looked up to. He always had something to say, some new perspective you hadn't heard yet. Harry was always curious about the world around him and how it worked. But more importantly, he was someone who wanted to make the world a better place. Harry was excited to both be a loving husband to Erin and a wonderful father to Ren. His life was all coming together so well, and it saddens me that it was all cut so short. Harry, you were the best older brother I could have ever asked for. Your death will be felt by myself and many others for the rest of our days. You'll be missed every day, but your legacy will live on, and you'll always be remembered. Till the day we meet again, from your younger brother, Jack. I love you. Goodbye, Harry.
Next, we'll welcome up Emma Halpern, one of Harry's closest friends and the executive director of Elizabeth Fry Society of the East Coast.
Thank you. Wow. Hi. Oh my God. Wow. Whew. This is so hard, but also incredibly moving to be here with so many people who loved, admired, and were impacted by Harry Critchley's brilliant mind and beautiful spirit. Of course, it's not surprising that so many of you are here. Harry was a bridge builder, a person of deep conviction, a loving, caring friend and family member, and a uniquely inspiring person. Through his work and his personal life, he touched the lives of all of you and many others who I know couldn't be here today. I don't think he would have imagined this, because despite his accolades and accomplishments, he was humble and extremely down to earth. I can hear him now saying, "Emma, buddy, there's a lot of people here." And I would tease him with, "Yeah, who knew you were so loved?" And we would laugh, because that was our friendship, founded on lightness and laughter, despite the difficulty and heaviness of the work that we took on every day. Harry had an ability to bring both his sharp intellect and a sense of fun and love to even the hardest situations. One night, about 8 years ago, we were up late in my dining room working on a grant, and we were talking about how hard and exhausting our work can be, and how understandable it is that people burn out and they leave prison justice work. And Harry said to me, "Oh, that won't be us. We may become shriveled husks who have thrown every last part of ourselves into our work, but we will always be standing, and we will always be there for each other." And from that day forward, whenever we had a particularly difficult case or an advocacy challenge, I would get a text or a call from Harry. "Hey, shriveled husk, you got this." Shriveled husk. For me and Harry, this became more than a teasing nickname. It was a commitment to each other. We were a team. And as the years went on, it became clear that Harry was actually no shriveled husk, but he remained my teammate, my champion, a calm, reasonable voice in the madness and intensity that was our shared work, our shared commitments, our shared love, and our shared values. I first met Harry 10 years ago at a Wellness Within event. I spoke that night on the traumas of giving birth while incarcerated. Hannah Garson introduced us after my talk, and I was struck by the intensity and knowledge from this young kid who had just finished undergrad. Harry was 14 years younger than me, and yet he had this depth of understanding of incarceration and carceral systems that amazed me and inspired me from the first day we met. We exchanged phone numbers, and Harry reached out hours later. He had so many ideas and so much energy for prison justice work. I was surprised and also a little distrusting, like, hey, kid, are you sure? Can you put your money where your mouth is? Of course, everyone in this room knows that he did, and then some. Within days, Harry was on it, all of it. Projects, advocacy, legal research, you name it, everything. He did everything. Our first big project was the creation of East Coast Prison Justice. There were just a few of us in the beginning, meeting in a random room in Dalhousie. It was Sheila and Hannah and Elle, who can't be here, but is here in spirit, Margaret, Mark, and a few others. And then in 2017, we launched for real. And a few months later, I took over the role of executive director at eFry. We would literally be here all day if I tried to list all of the amazing things that Harry brought to my world and to our small community. But here are just a few samples. With Harry's help, eFry grew from a small organization of 3, me and Sue, to a staff of 40. Our budget more than quadrupled, and we expanded from Halifax to Truro and beyond. Harry introduced me to the Pathy Foundation, helped write the grant that secured a massive human trafficking outreach project. When COVID hit, Harry and I worked to decarcerate the prisons with many others in our community. Harry created a guide to help with the reintegration of prisoners. He's also the one that drafted the original legal research memo that led to our dry cell success. And most recently, he provided me with essential expertise in our call into the fatality inquiry for the death of Sarah Denny in prison. And that's just a small sampling. The list goes on and on. But more important than any of these amazing accomplishments was Harry's presence in our office and within our eFry community. Harry came by regularly. He knew everyone, staff, clients, board members, and he treated everyone with care, love, and compassion. When I first learned of his death, the outpouring of love from former clients and eFry family members was unbelievable, even to me. But then it made sense, because Harry had a gift that allowed everyone to feel special and connected to him. He would show up randomly at our office with coffee. He had inside jokes with our staff and was willing to help everyone and anyone in our community, and their family members, and their family members, and so on. One of Harry's most admirable traits was his willingness to help, but to also never make you feel like you were a burden. He had this capacity to make work feel easy, and supporting others just second nature. And somehow, he seemed to have the time for it all. As time went on in our relationship, it became very clear that Harry was not ever going to be a shriveled husk. As Emma Norton wrote in her beautiful tribute on Facebook, Harry found deep, meaningful love with his wife Erin and daughter Ren. And through their beautiful, strong family, he found balance, real balance. He worked hard, but his priority was to be a father, a husband, and a friend. He loved Tatamagouche weekends and going to the park with his beloved Sophie. He went to the gym, he met friends at pubs and bars, and had all kinds of amazing travel adventures. Over the last decade, Harry went from being my intense, dedicated, shriveled husk team member to being a role model and a mentor for me and so many others in our community. In so many ways, Harry was my inspiration and my rock. So the truth is, it's painful and incredibly hard to imagine having to do this work without Harry. He has been at my side, my partner in prison justice, and one of my very closest friends for the last decade. On Sunday morning, less than 48 hours after his death, another friend called me to tell me that one of their family members had been tasered to death by the police. And the first person I picked up the phone to call was Harry. Harry would know exactly what to do. But instead, I broke down sobbing and thought, maybe I'm done with this work. Maybe I can't do this anymore. Maybe I need to move on. Maybe I can't do this without Harry. But as quickly as that thought entered my mind, I heard Harry's voice. You've got this, shriveled husk. I'm still here. And look around you. Look around this room. There's a massive community here to support you. And this is Harry's legacy. He loved hard. He built community wherever he was. And he will remain with all of us through all of you.
Thank you, Emma. Next, we'll welcome to the stage Sheila Wildman, co-chair of the East Coast Prison Justice Society and professor at Dalhousie Law.
Yes, I'm tall. I'm also, I lack the gift of concision, which Harry had in spades. As folks know, we had a funny relationship as co-chairs. We're a little yin and yang. And so bear with me. It's a hard honor to speak to Harry's life, to all of you who knew and loved him and worked with him, played with him. On behalf of East Coast Prison Justice, I want to say to Harry's family, Aaron, Ran, Barry, and Leah. Barry and Leah, I haven't met you in person before, and I'm really honored to be here with you. I do want to say those words, that there are no words, before I get into all my words. There are no words to measure this loss, except to say that we're here. We're here now. We're bound together with you in grief, but also in gratitude for sharing Harry with us. I can't, in this brief span, which might be longer than you expected, begin to sum up even a piece of what Harry did for us at what I'm going to call ECPJ, or maybe I'll just call it East Coast, the way I've been asked to try and relate to you, let alone do justice to the man that you knew. I find myself starting and hearing Harry opening one of our AGMs. He was a master, as folks know, of the public forum, and I will be forever in his shadow in that and many other ways, despite being 2 decades and more his elder and once his prof. Everybody knows that. And an AGM is not at all the vibe that I want. I would love to sing Harry out, but I also am not a very good singer. Sorry. Some of our members can sing, members of East Coast Prison Justice, and I can't wait to let loose the tears in future when they do. I have to add, please don't be alarmed if I tear up, even here and now, because that is sort of my nature, which is another reason that Harry, also Dr. L. Jones, our resident luminary, board member at East Coast Prison Justice, are the better choice to be up here. Elle, our hearts go out to you today, experiencing a deep double loss, burying your father and Harry in one weekend. Harry, like Elle, was no sentimentalist. It was all about the work. And yet, it was all about the work, and yet here I am standing in front of his family. The work was seamlessly, lucidly, brilliantly brought together with the love, and yet not the sentimentality. No ugly cries for Harry, right? So I have a job, and my job is to say something about the Harry who devoted so much energy this past 8 to 10 years to East Coast prison justice, and more broadly to what we call prison justice, which is really something of an oxymoron. Prison and justice being things that don't really chime. In the East Coast prison justice world, prisons are where the wrongs of the world are most highly concentrated. They're the places you look to try and crack the code and work back from what's worst and what's lost. You know, roll back the tape to try to identify the untraveled vectors of possibility, the pathways to some other better justice. It's in that spirit that I'm here to tell you about Harry, the co-chair of East Coast Prison Justice. Some of you know what I'm calling East Coast East Coast Prison Justice. Others don't know it at all. We're mostly a volunteer organization, one staff member now. Rachel, are you out there? Call out to Rachel, our one staff. God love you. Yeah, we have one staff. Harry helped start up the organization, as Emma said, co-founded in, 2016, 17, formally in 17, alongside me, Emma, so many, and she's named some. Have to name, give special mention to the brilliant, the fierce criminal defense lawyer and prison law lawyer, Hannah Garson, who's here as well as, of course, Dr. L. Jones and Mark Knox and others. Again, I couldn't list or we'd be here until 10. Our mandate at East Coast is to advance justice through advocacy, not just legal advocacy. We're not just for lawyers, but advocacy focused on the rights and the interests and the expertise, the insights of criminalized and incarcerated people in the Atlantic region. We're very small, so our focus continues to be Nova Scotia, with ambitions to do more in New Brunswick and PEI and Newfoundland. Harry just last year was applying for a grant from the New Brunswick Law Foundation. We'd love to travel. Harry would have loved us to travel. We have 3 main areas of activity, and Harry, together with Dr. L. Jones, is the only one who contributed equally, and by that I mean disproportionately, to all three Ps: public education, policing, and prisons, or rather critique and oversight of the latter two. The last one I'll explain a little bit more was focused on Nova Scotia's 4 provincial jails, and is focused on Nova Scotia's 4 provincial jails, including Dartmouth Central Nova Scotia Correctional Facility or Burnside Jail. So I was co-vice chair of East Coast with Harry for a couple years, working closely with then chair Hannah Garson. We were co-chairs from 2020 forward. But from the first days, as Emma said earlier, Harry stood out. From 2016, when this organization was just an idea or a shared felt need, not just for legal services for incarcerated people, but a need to link up those services with health and social supports, with the push for race and gender justice, with the push for intersectional reproductive and disability justice, the push to reconfigure justice through our mutual education and our budding, growing relationships. From those early days on, Harry was a lucid and energetic source of insight. He came in focused on building pathways, community pathways out of jail through education. He was focused on and understood, before he became a lawyer, understood human rights violations arising from routine treatment and conditions in the jails. He understood too, in a deep way, the more fundamental, what we call the abolitionist project of challenging incarceration as an inevitable feature of the social and institutional landscape. He was a bright light. There were at least 3 special qualities Harry brought to his work at East Coast, and these evolved over time, or rather, we evolved into recognizing and seeing these strengths. So what were these 3? First, he had a highly developed sense of purpose, as Barry said. He had an equally, second, developed pragmatic resourcefulness, know-how, drawing on seemingly boundless resources of intelligence and energy and charm, right? And third, he had a gift for assembling allies, friends, building community across lines and disciplines and sectors, drawing people together using that purposeful pragmatism so keenly attuned to justice. I have to say this, and I'm sorry too, But beyond these special qualities, it's important for me to say today, as we mark Harry's life, that his prison justice and his police justice work, his purpose and pragmatism and his community building was fixated in great part on death. Harry fought to speak for and act for those taken too young, taken unjustly at the hands of police and prisons. For example, Corey Rogers, who died in 2016 in police lockup in a Spithood after arrest for public intoxication. His name still rings out because of Harry's and Corey's mother, Jeanette's, advocacy for sobering centers. Greg Hiles, who died at East Coast Forensic in 2019, reportedly, though there's no public record, hanging from the bed sheets after a long stint in the most secure unit. Harry, Hannah, and we at East Coast Prison Justice campaigned unsuccessfully for changes to Nova Scotia law, making publicly transparent inquiries into deaths in custody mandatory after that. Instead, what we got was their discretionary cousin, death review committees, which Harry and Hannah memorably reacted to in our East Coast paraphernalia press releases with a campaign which said, Nova Scotia, just say no to secret, unaccountable death review committees. That's Harry's language. I'm quoting him. We await still, and Harry will never see the results of the death review committee on the passing of Sarah Rose Denny, whom Emma mentioned, a 32-year-old Mi'kmaq woman from Eskazoni who died in 2023, reportedly of pneumonia, upon transfer to hospital from Burnside Jail. Nor will he see what government will choose to share about the passing earlier that year of Peter Paul, 27, also from Eskazoni, who died reportedly by suicide while remanded to the Cape Breton jail. Or Richard Murray, Dalton, I guess you're not here, but Dalton, his son, works closely with us. Or Richard Murray, who died a year later in Burnside, also reportedly of suicide. Harry just won't know. Last spring, we and our friends Path Legal and a broader coalition of health and justice organizations held a month of action on deaths in custody, marking 6 deaths in the 18 months from September 2022 to June 2024. That's a lot in our small province. Harry was on panel 1, again, pushing for mandatory fatality inquiries for deaths in custody. This was just one of his passions. Transparent public oversight of prisons and policing, to activate democracy in ways that one can only hope might prevent the unthinkable, the ultimate abuse, the violent or otherwise inhumane dealing of death by the state. Yet, while we're not unfamiliar with death in the prison justice and police justice communities, of which Harry was such a key part, I never envisioned that the opportunity to celebrate the fallen heroes of prison justice would come in the way it falls so heavy on us today. We mark Harry's death at a time his absence is so keenly felt for so many reasons across so many spaces. The world each day seems to be accelerating in its threat to truth, democracy, dignity, values Harry stood for, argued for, and fought for with his whole heart. Increasingly tough on drugs and crime rhetoric and policy is erupting simultaneous with homelessness, hunger, desperation, making for troubled times on the street and a toxic political mood, both in Canada and, of course, the South. In Halifax this past week, as Emma said, not just one man, but 2 men were killed by tasers during so-called mental health calls here in Halifax. East Coast members are already in dialogue about our response. There were emails flying last night as some were grieving and others were looking and saying, we've got to start the press release. As Elle said in that email exchange, Harry would not want us to stop our work. So again, my task, I'll get there, is to give you a glimpse of Harry's contributions to East Coast prison justice. I'm starting to, I'm warming up. Politically, our jail oversight work, and I leave policing oversight to my fellow traveler, my fellow board member, and Harry's good friend, Dr. Tari Ajadi. But even with that division of labor, I just can't do Harry's work and world justice. So I urge you to visit the East Coast Prison Justice website, eastcoastprisonjustice.com, where you'll see Harry's beautiful face and Erin's and Ren's beautiful faces. reminding us of who we are and why we come together today and every day in mutual solace and struggle. You'll find these resources, resources on many of the projects Harry was critical to in our work. Especially though, I invite you to visit our living memorial wall dedicated to Harry, which we'll continue to add to through the week and longer, signaling the many deep connections he made to people and projects across our city and province and beyond. I know I'm so going too long, but I want to reflect for a second on this gift, the gift that Harry brought us by joining not just East Coast Prison Justice, but Halifax's wider community, our social justice community, our community. And that includes his great gift of strengthening connections between post-secondary learning and the wider community of learners and change makers in our midst. I'm amazed by how many of my colleagues at Dallin Kings, and I see a couple of them at least in the audience, participated in the Burnside Education Project, which Barry mentioned, bringing non-credit academic courses behind the walls of the province's largest jail. This was a project that Harry led from 2014 to, 2017 something. I wasn't really in on this one. He came to my admin law class and petitioned for people to come and teach in the jail. And I said, sure, well, what are you doing? You can read Randy Riley. Randy, are you here? Randy. I really wanted Randy to come. Is he here? Right on. You can read Randy Riley's account of meeting Harry through the Burnside Project when he was incarcerated. Randy writes, and you can see this on our memorial wall. I got to stop talking so you can get time to come. What he wrote, I'm saying your words, it's really weird. From the moment we met, we connected instantly. We both shared a passion for philosophy, and we were particularly drawn to the intellectual wit and wisdom of Socrates and his unique approach to navigating life's challenges. As Randy relates, he took the same course again with Harry 2 years later, and adds how 4 years on, at the urging of his and Harry's mutual friend, East Coast resident prison abolition luminary Dr. L. Jones, he reached out again to Harry, who through his various connections saw to it that Randy's tuition was covered so he could enroll as a mature student at Mount St. Vincent University. This work as a connector, a conductor, this was just Harry getting started on his path. He states in a retrospective King's article that once you see what is behind prison walls, you have a responsibility to act. Meeting Randy and others set Harry on a new course. I think it possibly drove him a little crazy in the way that anyone with an active and sensitive mind and the freedom to come and go when his brother lovers of Socrates and classics and gender studies cannot, the way they might get a little crazy, and I mean lucid crazy, provoked by encountering a gaping contradiction, a crack in the universe. The kind of crazy one gets when one goes home to dinner and one's fellow learners go back to soul-destroying isolation, strip searches, the daily threat and fact of the gravest violence. Harry saw for himself too, at that time, what the statistics only show on paper, the disproportionate incarceration of Indigenous, Black, also disabled, gender nonconforming, above all, poor people. I think seeing all this cruelty doubled down like that in a space where the vast majority of folks are in pre-trial, a fact I mention without for a second intending to suggest that such treatment is after the sentence just. All this, I think, drove Harry a little crazy in a way that possibly supercharged his already highly developed sense of justice. It made him crazy like a fox. I first met Harry, but I think it's a false memory. It's this thing with Julie Bellata coming in 2015, because there were a few events. My email chain starts in 2016. There's about 1,000 emails. Julie Bellata related her traumatic jailhouse birthing of her son while incarcerated at the Ottawa Carleton Detention Center. Harry later wrote about Julie's story in his master's thesis with Lisa Gunter, the esteemed philosopher at Queen's. Harry's thesis called out what academics call epistemic injustice. This described, he said, the ways that prisons delegitimate prisoners' knowledge even about themselves, even about the most intimate processes of their bodies. His thesis called for and this is Harry talking now, so listen up, I know I've been talking long. His thesis called for, I'll quote him, new tools, practices, and communities to identify and analyze the intricate and oftentimes concealed ways that the prison industrial complex works, so as to begin to dismantle its structures. New tools to pierce this epistemic injustice. Hold that thought and see what Harry did next. Harry completed his master's, he returned to Halifax, and he took up this role of co-vice chair, esteemed role, co-vice chair of East Coast Prison Justice. And he decided to become a lawyer. He entered Dal Law 2020. What he was choosing was a community. The prison justice community he'd already significantly shaped through his own ideals, by now his mature and maturing relationships, not just with people in East Coast Prison Justice, but this is Harry, people everywhere, in the jails, in the bakeries, in the universities and colleges, public service organizations, with journalists, healthcare workers, politicians. Harry strategically and yet authentically, with the joy and curiosity, he brought everything he did, built relationships across all these domains, cultivating a growing circle of friends, all of you, in a way that was loving and hopeful, creatively relational, as well as very pragmatic, crazy like a fox, part of a long game of building trust and mutual aid. All right, so with that, I'm gonna actually flip over what I was gonna say about the visiting committee, which is a great story. This work that we did, but I'll just give you a taste, because I want to go back to Harry's master's thesis, which was about breaking down epistemic injustice with new tools that would amplify and legitimate the voices of incarcerated people. This was Harry's dream in response to the injustice experienced by Julie Bellotta and comparable horrors. I think my husband was cutting for me and he took out the part where Julie described her jailhouse birth. But the fact was she was in labor and crying out in pain. And the understanding of the staff was that she was making it up. She was very pregnant at the time. They put her in solitary and she experienced a breech birth. And even when a foot was emerging from her vagina, the staff said she was concealing contraband there. That's what he meant by epistemic injustice. When I say, how is it even possible to think that? So what did we do in our little project? Let me just tell you that the East Coast Prison Justice Society Visiting Committee, or VC, was evolved through a small group of people, including Harry. And what was its purpose? It was threefold. One, to monitor conditions of confinement in provincial jails. Two, to report on those conditions. And three, to engage in systemic and individualized advocacy. How did we do that? Monitoring. We do it by talking to prisoners and hearing from them what their concerns are. We have a phone line that's accessible from all 4 of Nova Scotia's provincial jails. The line's been operative ever since 2020. We went in at first in person just prior to the pandemic. And then with the pandemic, sealing of the institutions, under the creative leadership of our then director, Hannah Garson, we pivoted to this free phone line I've described. In 22-23, we received over 800 calls to our phone line, and we record vigilantly, those calls and what the concerns that prisoners bring to us. And again, you can see this on our website and learn more about, the kind of things that clearly I'm a little obsessed about and have 2 minutes to finish up. I'm going to. So to close, in the last year, Harry took a brief break from East Coast Prison Justice and other pursuits to enjoy his family, to get married, to travel. He came back to colds and flu and a pile of cases, but he never seemed beleaguered. He kept on with his high-watt smile. The last time I saw Harry, other than a time I sort of zoomed in at Path Legal the day before he died, was a week before that at the law school. This was at an event that new East Coast Prison Justice Board member Renford Ferrier, with the help of fellow members Kylie Nunn and Laura Conrad, organized. It was titled Beyond the Sentence, Navigating Parole from the Inside. The 180-person room was nearly full. Harry came in quietly around the halfway mark. I didn't notice him right away. When the panel concluded, he came over and sat down with that big puppy dog smile on his face. and he launched into storytelling mode, a mode people here will recognize, narrating in concise but colorful detail his latest client's predicament at Legal Aid, how Harry was using his creative, legal, and counterfactual mind to unpick the lock that had been locked around them. Police errors and abuses, gender injustice, a strategic call on an expert. Harry was getting the charges dropped. He was excited. It seemed so simple as Harry described it, but it was, for many legal aid and other lawyers, probably unthinkable because it wasn't routine. Just a moment's unpicking and Harry had broken what looked like a lock. He was all about dispelling collective delusions of fixity. I and many have speculated over the years about what path Harry would take next, understanding he was happy at Legal Aid, but he seemed happy anywhere he had contact with real people with real problems he could help solve. One thought was that maybe he'd end up the federal correctional investigator someday, leveling up from East Coast prison justice work that way. One of those contributing to our memorial page is Howard Sapers, himself correctional investigator from 2004 to 16 and chair of the Structured Intervention Units Advisory Committee until its recent final report. Howard writes that after meeting Harry at our first big educational event in 2018, he left in high spirits, knowing he, to quote, had just met a leader of what would become the next generation of champions for human rights in the administration of justice. He praises Harry's tireless advocacy and recalls the words of Martin Luther King, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Howard concludes, Harry's dedication to the things he believed in has resulted in a legacy that will continue to inspire others to pick up the torch and keep following that arc. I know his memory will continue to motivate and inspire me. Well, me too. So I close with a commitment to act. First, and this is from the East Coast Prison Justice Board, who yesterday, as I said, was already corresponding about preparing a statement on the 2 taser deaths in Halifax just this week. Why we ask more fatal wellness checks after all we know and have committed to do. Why more death? So that's one commitment to act. And the second one, I commit to creating, or rather having our wonderful communications lead, Laura Conrad, create a page on our site for monitoring responses of public officials to East Coast Prison Justice recommendations. Those would include the various recommendations Harry has been part of, starting with our accumulated visiting committee recommendations to corrections, Nova Scotia Health Correctional Health Service, the Ombuds, the Premier, Harry's various motions to and staff requests of the Board of Police Commissioners, and the Mass Casualty Commission recommendations, fashioned after submissions of the East Coast Prison Justice and BC Civil Liberties Coalition, which Harry appeared as expert witness and representative of during those proceedings, while still a law student. As time goes on and work continues, we'll add new recommendations. In the spirit of Harry's and our evolving sense of collective responsibility, Harry, thank you for your company, your commitment, and your ambition to think and act in the company of all of us. Thank you.
Next, we'll welcome to the stage Karen Endres, Harry's colleague at Dartmouth Legal Aid.
I have the privilege this afternoon of sharing some things with you about the Nova Scotia Legal Aid part of Harry's life. I first met Harry in 2022 when he was still a law student, and he was a student with the Dalhousie Legal Aid Clinic. He came up and approached me at Dartmouth Provincial Court and introduced himself. And he said, "Hi, I'm Harry. I'm going to be articling with you this year." And well, that was news to me. And maybe at the time I thought a little bit of willful manifestation on Harry's part. But actually, and as usual, he was the first to know what was right. Little did I know at that time just how lucky we were that he chose us. Harry could have worked anywhere. He was a much pursued article clerk, but Harry followed his heart and his passion to legal aid, his self-described dream job. Harry's brilliance, his capacity, his discipline, his dedication, his compassion, and his commitment to justice were immediately obvious to all of us in Dartmouth. Frankly, we were all a little bit in awe of him. One of our senior lawyers will say that it was actually Harry who mentored him and not the other way around. Very quickly, Harry became a cornerstone in our office. While he professed that this was his dream work, what he brought to each one of us in the Dartmouth office was really the dream. From the day he set foot in our office, it was as if he had always been part of our close-knit family. Harry showed up every day with intention, and not just for the work, for the legal argument, which he did, but he showed up for his team and for his clients. For us, he would be a smile in a daily chat with a side of humor, a sounding board for the stressful and complicated files, and a calm, confident presence that grounded us. For his clients, he showed up with patience, with kindness, and with skill that far exceeded his years of practice. In speaking with his clients this week, they have all been so affected by the immensity of his loss. They've cried, they've expressed anger and disbelief, and they have all said, "He helped me so much." Harry challenged each of us to be better by the example that he set. If each one of us could take a page or even a paragraph or a sentence from Harry's book, the world would be an infinitely better place. Harry made a real difference in the lives of so many, and he leaves us his legacy and a challenge to follow his life's example. He would say, if you have the ability, you have a responsibility. And he truly lived that way. Whether it was in working to create a safe space for Muslim women and girls to be able to swim in a public pool, because he couldn't bear anyone being unfairly treated. Whether that was taking over a daily hug tradition for an office buddy when another lawyer was on leave, because he couldn't bear someone not feeling supported. Whether that was, and much to the chagrin of his assistant, returning from court nearly every day having found a new client, because he couldn't bear to see someone needing help and not step in. Whether that was running a shot-in-the-dark charter application, because he knew it was the right thing to do. Whether that was making sure he checked in with each one of us at the office with a genuine desire to know what was going on in your world that day, because he wanted to know if there was anything he could do to help. Whether that was making a point to say goodbye and good night before he left the office, even if it meant leaving the front door unlocked, because he wanted to do one last check-in before heading home. Whether that was lending anyone a tie from the back of his door, or even his shirt when there was a lunchtime spill, because he would literally give you the shirt off his back. Whether it was stepping in to cover a court appearance, even when it was completely contrary to his own schedule, because he couldn't bear to see a friend and colleague overwhelmed. Whether it was deleting TikTok and replacing it with reading provincial court decisions from across the country, because he was driven to learn and he loved to share what he learned with others. Or whether it was pushing the boundaries of policing policy or delivering a clever legal argument, because he thrived on advancing and advocating the position of others. These are but a few of the ways that Harry showed us true examples of kindness and humanity. Aaron, Ren, and Sophie, Barry and Leah, Jack, and Ted, thank you for sharing your Harry with us the last 3 years. We are all better humans, and we are better legal aiders for having known him.
Next, I'd like to welcome up Harry's close friend, Tari Ajadi. professor at McGill University.
That's good. Hi, everyone. I prepared a lot of words to honor Harry's memory. I've been sat racking my brain for the past week trying to name the incalculable loss. I don't know if those words will ever truly explain just how much this person meant to me, but I'm gonna give it a whirl. So the thing about Harry, the thing that you've heard from everyone who's spoken, and the thing that if you knew Harry for a moment, you would implicitly understand, is that he was actually governed by a central philosophy. Just a really clear and obvious drive towards dignity and care. It was that simple. If you knew him, you knew that he cared about you, not as a means to get something, not as a way to advance an agenda, but he cared about you because you were a person and you deserved care and dignity. He wrote about this. He could trace the kind of lineage of this kind of thinking from ancient times. He wrote in his undergrad about Sir Thomas Aquinas. He wrote in his master's about epistemic injustice, because of course this was about a care, or in the case of epistemic injustice, a lack thereof, a dignity or a lack thereof. And so that extended to every single person, no matter who they were, no matter how he encountered them, no matter what their circumstances were, no matter what they were supposed to have done or not done. So we get that about his work. But the thing that was so magical about him is that it extended to his interpersonal relationships. Because even when you were in a situation that wasn't so dire, he would try to bring buoyancy into your life. He was a jokester. He was a prankster. He liked to mess around with people. He messed around a lot with me. And so, in the face of everything that we've lost, I think it's important to think about what we've gained. And what we've gained is an example of who we all must be. It's an example of the ways that we need to show up for each other. I often wondered about Harry. He could have done anything. Like he really could have done anything. He could have gone anywhere. He was the most peculiar person. His entire life was devoted to causes that in a different world, maybe he never would have bothered to address. Millions of people live their entire lives not thinking once about people who are incarcerated. They live their entire lives, and it's fine for them. And that doesn't make them bad people. They live their lives, maybe they get angry at like getting a flat tire or something, and they just go on with their day. And there's plenty more people who use these causes as a jumping point for their own careerist ambition. Or maybe to strike at someone they don't like, as a cudgel, to beat people down. It is the rarest thing in the world to be as forthright, as transparent, and as committed to principles of justice as Harry was. So I kept asking myself, well, why? Why are you this way? And then I got to meet Barry. And I got to meet Leah a little bit. And I haven't, unfortunately, gotten as much time with Harry's brothers. But then it made total sense. This is who you are. That's what you were steeped in. Yes, that commitment to justice. Yes, that honesty. Yes, that concision. Yes, that humor. Yes, that unique blend of person that made him him. I understood. It made total sense. Harry often told me a lesson that he learned from Emma. You have to move fast. You have to try stuff. And if it doesn't work, you just got to move on. It wasn't about being scattershot, but it was about recognizing the promise embedded in every idea. It was a connection in the most important ways to the idea of endless possibility for and with others, and a commitment to bring that into the world. He always built with others. For friends, neighbors, co-workers. And a lot of our work together came from that fundamental impulse. It was that impulse that got us driving 14 hours to Ottawa in the middle of November in a tiny cream Fiat 500 convertible, staying in rural Quebec, getting stuck in the mud because we just got to try stuff. And it was that commitment that prompted him to call me up on the 29th of May, 2020, and start to talk about policing stuff. Start to talk about what we could do. Yes, okay, we got to hit the streets, but to what end? What are we going to build? What's the infrastructure going to look like? And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm in. I don't know. My response to Harry was always, I don't know, maybe. And so he brought me in, he brought Ellen, he brought Jen in, he brought Julia in, and later a raft of other people. We just started this crazy project. Let's troll the police board. We used to write them letters. I remember Harry writing like 6 pages about how their agenda made no sense. We worked around the table in his kitchen. We worked at mine sometimes. We worked late at night, early in the morning. We went on retreats. We did stuff together. Sometimes I wanted to drop off. He was like, you got to keep going. He pushed that report across the finish line. And I know that one of the proudest moments that he experienced was when there were consultations, public consultations that had never happened in the history of the police board. And people started quoting directly from the report, saying, on this page, this is what this said. Are you going to do this? That was Harry. Let's use the evidence. Let's hold you accountable. You said you were going to do this. Are you going to do this? Are you going to stand up? He was always so self-assured, except for one time. I remember I was in his kitchen and he was talking about Aaron. About this person that he loved so much and he couldn't communicate how. He couldn't find the words. This is Harry. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? I was so honored to be able to share so many of these kinds of moments. I was there when he kind of told me that Aaron was the love of his life. I watched him grow into a great man, a great husband, and a great father. I was there when he bought his house. I was there when he got into law school. I watched him grow. The last times I got to see him, I watched him be a father for the first time. It was the most incredible thing. He created a beautiful angel with you, Aaron. baby Ren. So sweet. All of his accomplishments meant the world to him, but nothing meant more to him than his wife and his daughter. This loss is unfathomable to me still. It is senseless. But he would push me to try and make meaning of it anyway, to try and recover something from this, as devastating as I feel, as devastating as it is that he's gone. So, spent that whole week striving for something, and here's what I've got. If you care about others, if you believe in the essential dignity of all, then it is your duty to show that care in every interaction. It is your duty to keep striving for more, to keep showing up, to be a good father and a good husband and a good colleague and a good friend and a good community member at the same time. It's not a strive for perfection. It's not about avoiding mistakes, but it's about avoiding being paralyzed. Avoiding that inner voice that tells you you're not good enough, that what you say doesn't matter, that people don't care, that you can have no impact. You owe it to yourself and to the people around you to keep trying, because I know that that's what Harry did. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to play a tribute video that was put together in Harry's honor.
Another sunny day has come and gone away in Paris and Rome, and I wanna go home. Maybe surrounded by a million people, I still feel all alone. Just wanna go home. Oh, I miss you, you know. And I've been keeping all the letters that I wrote to you, each one a line or two. I'm fine, baby, how are you? Now I'd send them. My words were cold and flat, and you deserve more than that. Another sunny day, another airplane. I'm lucky, I know, but I wanna go home. Just let me go home. Let me go home.
Ren! Over here!
Oh, I'm just too far from where you are. Got to go home.
Did you get a picture of that?
Wee!
And it feels just like I'm living someone else's life. It's like I just stepped outside and everything was going right. And I know that you just could not come along with me. This was not your dream.
Kick, kick, kick. Ren! Ren! Kick, 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 kick. Kick, 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 kick. Woo!
Baby, there's a room and I just wanna go home. I miss you. And I'm surrounded
Came home to a
by
tree.
a million people. I still feel alone. Let me go home.
What are we doing, Harry?
Rainbow what?
The rainbow watch.
Let me go home. Baby, I'm done. I'm coming back home. Let me go home. It'll all be alright. I'll be home tonight. I'm coming back home.
Well, that'll get you. That's really beautiful. We are a little over time, but we'd like to open it up for about the next 10 minutes or so and have anyone that has a few short words or memories or anything they'd like to say about Harry before we close up. I'm just going to welcome up my brother John to say a few things.
I had actually met Harry a few years before my sister did. Me and some friends used to work out at the King's College gym, even though we weren't students there, and we would often see Harry there. Looking back at the time, it would have made complete sense if Harry passed us off as obnoxious and avoided us at all costs. We brought our own speaker and blasted our music in the tiny gym with very little regard to other gym goers. But that's not what happened. Harry liked the music we were playing. I believe it was Anderson .Paak at the time. And he was as friendly as can be. Over the next several months, we would see Harry often, and he took a genuine interest in our lives. We helped him with his deadlift and squat form, bonded over music, and discussed career paths. Eventually, King's College stripped us of our gym key card privileges. They found out we weren't students. So we were forced to go elsewhere. We didn't stay in touch with Harry, but he left an impression on all of us. Fast forward 3 years later. Word on the street is my sister has a new boyfriend. So obviously I want to meet him. Lo and behold, there in the flesh is Harry Critchley with a big friendly, "Hey, buddy." I would never admit it at the time, but I already knew my sister found a good one in Harry. Next, it was time to meet the parents. Aaron brought Harry up to my parents' house in Tatamgush for a weekend, sometime in March 2020. Well, a weekend with the parents would turn into moving in with the parents along with their little rescue dog for several months during a global pandemic. My mom was thrilled. As roommates, I got to know Harry a lot better. Harry was a brilliant mind. He could have gone to Harvard, but he decided to go to Dalhousie Law School instead because he wanted to pursue every law student's ultimate dream, which is to do legal aid and rule in Nova Scotia. There aren't enough words, and I don't have nearly enough time to properly convey what Harry meant to my family.
He became a brother to me and Ian, and a son to my mother and father. He loved my sister unconditionally, and was her rock through the death of her father. And he blessed the world with one of the most beautiful babies in little Ren. I will forever cherish the time we spent together. It's the thing about when Harry moved to Tatamagouche with my sister is he never left. Tatamagouche and Malagash became his happy place, and he could be found there almost every weekend, especially in the summer. To leave on a note, one of the characteristics I most about Harry was that he was the most positive, upbeat, and optimistic person I'd ever met. While all our thoughts and emotions over the next days, months, and years will undoubtedly be dominated by grief, sadness, anger, and confusion about how such a beautiful life with limitless potential could be cut so tragically short, I hope once in a while we all lend ourselves a different, more Harry-oriented perspective to help ease that pain. And what is that, you might ask? Well, if you ask me, Harry had already accomplished everything he set out to do in life in only 32 years. He secured his dream job, working legal aid in Dartmouth. He changed thousands of underprivileged lives for the better through his initiatives with the East Coast Prison Justice Society and the Elizabeth Fry Society, among others. He married my sister in a beautiful ceremony in Tuscany only 4 months ago, surrounded by family and friends. And most of all, he became an amazing father to the light of his life, beautiful baby Ren, who will carry on his memory forever. Harry won at life, and he left this world in a better place than where he found it. I like to think that wherever he may be, he's looking down, smiling, grateful and proud of the life he built and his countless accomplishments that he's left. Harry, in your 32 years on this earth, you've left a legacy that most will never achieve over an entire lifetime. Thank you for loving my sister unconditionally and making all her dreams come true. I promise we'll take care of her, Sophie and Ren, and your family, and I promise that not a single day will go by where Ren is not reminded of the incredible, compassionate, and caring man that is her father. Thank you.
My name is Dorico Simons. And first, I just want to say thank you to Harry's family for bringing Harry into this world and for giving him us here in Halifax. Some people are once in a generation kind of people who are brought to us to serve a purpose. Harry served his purpose and more. I met Harry, I think about 10 years ago when he was a lifeguard. And I believe the first time I read his name, I actually said out loud, Harry Critchley. What a strong name. And when I met him, he certainly lived up to that. Harry worked with me while I was working in the community of Mulgrave Park to try and get youth into lifeguarding. Swimming lessons, etc. You name it, Harry was trying to do it. But it was all to help and to get them hired. Recently, Harry and I caught up with each other when we were in court and passing. As soon as I seen him, he had open arms. We actually had the opportunity to give each other a hug, and we were showing each other our new young families and exchanging baby pictures. Harry worked with me behind the scenes on Death Review Committee work, where he certainly shared his criticism, offered to come in and do presentations, whatever research he had, he wanted to come in and share, as well as healthcare and corrections work. I believe Harry is truly a special individual, a one-of-a-kind smile, a generational mind, and a beautiful father and community member. I'm grateful that the last time I saw Harry, I was able to give him a hug. And I know a small phrase that I think sums up Harry's work for me was that good enough was never good enough for Harry. And you will always be loved, my friend. Thank you.
As you all probably know, Harry had a secret hobby of collecting errands, and I am one of them. The last time I got to spend meaningful time with Harry, he and I drove down to Brooklyn on a whim. He had called me saying his favorite band was playing there and that I should go along. Turns out the plane tickets were too expensive, so we drove 16 hours each way in a 3-day period to go see this band. And here we are, we make it to Brooklyn late at night, the coolest neighborhood and the coolest city in the world. We get a table outside in the freezing cold at a Thai restaurant. And all Harry wants to do is talk to this random dad who's walked by with a stroller about how cool it is to be a dad. No idea who this guy is, but he's whipped out his phone. He's showing him pictures of Ren. He's talking about everything. And I just feel like that's a beautiful memory. And I feel like Archie's here. We met a random Canadian man at the concert venue who happened to be like one link removed from us. He's in the back over there. I don't know. He just had this way of just wherever he went, there were just people who we knew. Anyway, a lot of people have shared today about all the amazing work Harry's done as a lawyer. But before that, he was a classics student. And so I feel like there has to be some Latin before the ceremony's over. So I'm going to read you sort of a 2,000-year-old poem of loss. First, I'll do it in English. I'll try anyway. I'll probably cry. And then I'll read it in Latin. And then I'll be gone. It's short. Carried through many lands and across many seas, I have come, brother, to these wretched funeral rites, so that I might give you the final gift of death, and I might speak, brother, to mute ash. Since fortune has snatched you from us, alas, wretched brother, unfairly snatched you away. Now, nevertheless, accept these rites, given according to ancient custom, brother, at the Feast of the Dead, as a sad gift, soaked in fraternal weeping. So forever, brother, hail and farewell. Multas per gentes et multa per aequora vectus, ad venias miseras, frater ad inferias. Ut te postremo donorum munera mortis, et mutam neque qualiquarer cinerem. Quando quidem fortuna mihi tetabstulit ipsum, hu miser indigne, frater adempte mihi. Nunc tamen inter iag prisco quae more parentum tradida sunt Christi, munerad inferias. Accipe frater no multum manantia fletu, atquin perpetuum frater, awatque vale.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric. I work at Iron Sunshine Conditioning, where Harry spent several hours of his lunchtime and evening workouts. I'm also an athletic therapist for Young Chem Physio, so I was able to treat Harry for a few of his injuries. And I'm sure none of you are surprised to hear that of the few sessions that I had with me and I'm supposed to be teaching him something, I would always learn much more from him than he learned from me. I just wanted to say, and I'm sure many of our members of the gym community here today would also agree that the only energy Harry ever brought to our gym was love and friendship. He loved to work hard and encourage everyone, and we were all better for it. As we do, which some may find odd in the CrossFit world, we do workouts to commemorate those that we've lost. So we'll be coming together as a community on March 28th to get really sweaty, work really hard, and do all the things that Harry loved to do with us to remember him. Thank you.
Okay, well, I can attest to Harry's gym. I would go there with him, and he knew every single person at the gym. Often missed workouts because he was too busy talking to people. Okay, so we're a little over, and I just want to say thank you first to all these people standing up for an hour and a half. Thank you, and everyone for being here. Thanks to the team at Elizabeth Fry, East Coast, and to the Path Legal team, and special thanks to Emma, who helped put all this together in a very short time. Both Emmas, thank you, Emma. Just quick things. So the reception will follow. I'll be downstairs. Food will be here. Bar will be downstairs. Again, bathrooms here and downstairs. And with that, I'll just close by saying Harry, buddy, you'll be truly missed, but you can rest easy knowing you will never be forgotten. Your legacy lives on in your daughter Ren, in our hearts, and the imprint you made on your community and all those you came in contact with. So until next time, thank you all. And with that, we'll carry on downstairs. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's special.
Thank you.